Chapter 12. The Seventh Bearer. Max felt an incredible strength within him. By fully accepting Umbra into his life, he was able to better understand Achilles. His katana was now fully formed and intricately detailed. He was snapped back to reality when he noticed another sword clashing against his. Bastil was exerting immense force in an attempt to break his weapon once more, but this time it wouldn't happen. Max stood firm, feeling his soul essence flow harmoniously throughout his body. It was time to counterattack. As he rose to his feet, he barely noticed the cut Bastil had inflicted moments earlier. He pushed Bastil back and swiftly teleported to Ryan, cutting the branches holding him captive. Ryan was ready to join the fight, but Didi intercepted him. She was eager to see the bearer's potential now that he had mastered the shadow. With her agile movements and extraordinary strength, she rivaled the lieutenant with her two pistols. She could slow down her surroundings, neutralizing her opponent's extreme speed advantage. Sasha, recovering slightly from her earlier blow, saw her comrades in the heat of battle and immediately pursued her target, Whiteface. He awaited her with kunai knives in each hand and taunted her to attack. Enraged, Sasha used her space jump ability, propelled by flames, to re-engage in combat. The masked man blocked every slash and strike, and Sasha's frustration was evident in this dangerous dance. To mock her further, he began correcting her movements and techniques. "You always anticipate a step," he said in his distorted voice. "Control your breathing better. Your thrusts lack force. You're deflecting the blade 2 millimeters to the right." This only made things worse for her. Her rage grew when she realized that he had stolen her family's fighting style, the same style he had used to defeat her brother years ago. This made her thirst for revenge even more personal. Her emotions clouded her judgment, and Whiteface took advantage of this, landing blows on vital points. He sheathed his kunai and began disrupting her energy flow with the tips of his index fingers. This prevented her from manifesting any energy and exhausted her completely. Sasha fell to her knees, powerless, waiting for her mortal enemy to deliver the final blow. He raised his hand to her forehead and released a small but potent burst of soul essence directly into her head. This caused her to slowly lose consciousness. As everything faded, she heard Whiteface tell her that she still needed to train more and seek support from her comrades if she wanted to avenge her brother. Thomas was startled to see the eerie clown Plump standing beside him. When he tried to attack, his adversary seemed to be made of rubber, bending and stretching to evade every strike. Black claws emerged from Plump's long fingers and blocked Thomas's wind-cutting techniques. Some of his blows landed, but the grotesque foe showed no sign of pain and kept fighting. Suddenly, Plumps leaped back, stretching his jaw down to the base of his neck. A cannon grotesquely emerged from his throat and fired heavy bullets at Thomas. Perplexed by this disturbing scene, Thomas dodged the rapid shots and noticed a pattern in the trajectory of the black bullets. As Plump shifted direction, Thomas seized the moment. He concentrated his soul essence to create a slight wind current beneath him. He positioned his right sword behind his back and his left sword in front, with both tips pointing downward. When he heard a shot coming his way, he slashed with his right sword to block a bullet, raised his left sword to deflect another, and used a space jump and the prepared wind current to slide into the perfect position. He brought both swords together to slice through the clown's cannon. Plumps could only glance down as Thomas finished his technique. Typhoon Blade. A powerful gust of wind accompanied the edge of the sword, amplifying the damage of his attack. Plumps was sent flying, his body rigid. When he hit the ground, it sounded like a bundle of metal rods crashing. Thomas resumed his combat stance and leaped to finish off the monster. However, Plump swallowed the remains of the cannon and stretched his arms enough to escape. As he stood, a thin line of nearly black blood dripped from his lip, accentuating the sadness on the left side of his face. Despite using his immense soul essence, Ryan was at a slight disadvantage against Didi. She could somehow predict his every move. Since she couldn't match his physical strength, she focused on dodging his strikes. When she got close enough to slash him with her long, sharp nails, Ryan expelled fire from his body to protect himself. She was merely toying with him, and he was growing tired of wasting time. He fired a shot and immediately followed up, covering his next move. Just as he thought he could land a hit, he discovered part of Dee Dee's secret. Her eyes changed shape and color, allowing her to see his attacks. Runes were etched into her eyes, and when activated, they granted her abilities that were highly useful in combat. Realizing she had been found out, Dee Dee smiled at Ryan. Her pupils shifted, becoming larger and taking on a twisted X shape. She began firing purple rays from her eyes that Ryan dodged, but they prevented him from advancing. She was trying to corner him. Ryan retaliated with his attacks, which she blocked with her ocular beams. Growing increasingly frustrated, Ryan decided to stop wasting time. He combined his two pistols, moving from side to side and gathering enough energy to unleash one of his strongest attacks. Annihilator Dragon. A dragon's head shot toward Dee Dee, who attempted a similar move. Her pupils shifted into a five-pointed star and she released a massive energy blast. The two attacks collided and pushed against each other for several minutes. She was only buying time for her accomplice. Ignoring the risk, Ryan increased his soul's awakening slightly, amplifying the size and strength of his attack. He gained the upper hand and overpowered his enemy, causing a moderate explosion that brought parts of the ceiling down, blocking their path. Dee Dee hadn't anticipated Ryan's immense strength, and she was badly injured by the fire attack. Trapped under fallen debris, her eyes bled from the strain. She shifted her shape again, opening a portal from which three medium-sized dark green creatures emerged. They were goblins tasked with freeing their mistress, who screamed at them to hurry. Her left arm and leg were badly injured. Ryan had already freed himself from the rubble, so Dee Dee let out a sharp whistle. The goblins screamed in pain and retreated through the portal. Meanwhile, Thomas continued trying to land a hit on his enemy, who kept evading his attacks as if programmed to distract and waste his time. In the distance, a sharp, annoying whistle echoed. Hearing it, Plumps grew desperate, his face contorting with rage. He quickly left to find his mistress, whom he found injured on the ground. He turned to Ryan, ready to attack, but Dee Dee stopped him. "Save your energy, my dear Plumps, and help me recover." The clown looked at her and plunged his long fingers into her wounds as if injecting a substance. Her skin grew paler and began to heal. However, Plumps shrank little by little until he became round and much smaller, more fitting of his strange name. Thomas arrived and was stunned by the clown's new, chubby form. Dee Dee had fully recovered and smiled at her adversaries. "A homunculus is useful and loyal," she said, winking at them. The Guardian's bewilderment was evident. Homunculi were supposed to be mythical creatures, forbidden and never successfully created. Dee-Day, an alchemist with extensive knowledge of demons and runes, had achieved the impossible. Whiteface joined his allies and pointed to where Sasha lay unconscious. Thomas quickly moved to check on his comrade, fearing the worst. Fortunately, she was only exhausted. Ryan raised his pistols again. His body had already sustained significant damage from the intense heat of his soul. Dee Dee tried to distract him by returning his coat and hat, but he wasn't fooled. His enemies were now focusing more on Bastil, who was fighting Max. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was nearly impossible to rival the power of a demon in its weaponized state. Yet the shadow proved strong enough to hold back their leader with his combat techniques. Max achieved near-perfect balance by using the shadow's attack and defense modes. His strikes were faster and more precise, and the katana felt light yet firm in his hands. Each step allowed him to flow naturally into the next, and his senses were heightened, allowing him to focus just the right amount of essence. He could see Bastil channeling much of his energy into the arm holding the demonic weapon. Max also noticed that the sword sent its energy back to the user unevenly, as if it were the first time Bastil had wielded it. Max planned to exploit this by targeting the hand holding the sword and creating an opening to end the battle. Bastil was ecstatic about the fight. Everything he had researched about Umbra paled in comparison to the demonstration he was witnessing. Eager to claim that ultimate power, he increased his speed and strength with each strike. The boy was handling his katana better and better. With the black mask, it was difficult to read his expressions or anticipate his moves. Ecstasy provided him with unimaginable energy, equivalent to the strength of the Eternals. However, he began to feel the sword grow heavier, and a small cramp traveled from his hand to his chest. He wasn't accustomed to fighting this way, and his body was reacting to the new style. His opponent's defense was excellent, likely due to knowledge passed down from previous bearers. However, this was the first time the boy had manifested this power, and he would tire soon. As his enemy accelerated his attacks, Max focused solely on defense. He elevated his attack mode by one level, combining it with shadow teleportation. This tricked Bastil, who charged at him into missing when Max disappeared just before impact and reappeared a few steps behind. However, Max miscalculated the distance and missed his strike by a few centimeters. He needed better control of the range of his teleportation. Realizing Max's new strategy, Bastil kept his distance to avoid sudden attacks. Now it was Max who attacked while Bastil defended. The others were amazed by the energy both warriors displayed. The clash of weapons grew more frequent. Max was getting accustomed to attack mode 1 and had a slight advantage, but Bastil's experience helped him. He anticipated Max's moves and blocked the strikes of the black katana. A small cramp in his right hand turned into a radiating pain that grew more intense. Unable to move his arm quickly enough, he was wounded, though not severely. He managed to dodge a fatal strike, but the sword grew heavier, and he no longer had the initial strength. "So this is the cost of wielding an infernal weapon," Bastil said with a smile. "I need to fix this issue first. Didi, I need you now," he shouted to his companion. "Remember, dear, I'm not your maid. You must ask politely," Didi replied as she approached. "My precious jewel, my hand can't move. I need more time to control this power," said Bastil, clutching his right hand with his left. Whiteface covered his leader while Max tried to finish off his enemies. However, the masked man's agility kept Max at bay. Two familiar faces, Evangeline and Big Jack, joined Whiteface. The three of them kept Max occupied while Bastil recovered and returned the sword to its ring form. When he removed it from his finger, the damage to his body was evident. Whiteface reunited with him, and Didi opened a portal for the four of them to escape. Max now faced the two individuals who had tried to kidnap him months ago. He wasn't afraid this time, but eager to test his newfound strength. Big Jack placed his hand on his belt buckle, which was shaped like a winged demon and had turned completely black. He transformed first into a large demon, then into the battle axe that Max had seen during their first encounter. Meanwhile, Evangeline held the blue crystal pendant around her neck, which glowed brightly. A large silver and sky blue wolf appeared behind her and transformed into her combat spear. They all took battle stances. Thomas secured his unconscious comrade while Ryan put on his coat and hat to calm his powerful soul. Thomas approached to help, but Ryan refused, intent on joining Max in battle. "Lieutenant, your body is severely affected by the extreme temperatures of your soul. Please don't do anything reckless," Thomas pleaded, concerned. "Leaving the path like this is what's reckless, Thomas," Ryan replied sharply. "They're injured too and won't get far. I've already ordered the other squads to begin searching," Thomas quickly added. "The savages out there will tell me where Bastil is hiding," Ryan said, his voice fading slightly. Max took a deep breath and assumed the initial stance for Shadow Balance Mode 1. It was time to put it into practice, fulfill his duty, and learn more about the Shadow's path. Big Jack initiated the attack, but Max easily blocked his strikes, moving with precision. After combining attack and defense modes, Max realized he had completed the 7th step and saw an opening. He could launch a powerful strike or use maximum shadow combined with other techniques in an instant. He concentrated a moderate amount of power into the katana's edge. At the right moment, he unleashed the final thrust with immense force. "Shadow Balance 1!" Max exclaimed. "Maximum shadow combined." Big Jack's battle axe shattered when the black katana's powerful shadow slash struck it. He sustained a deep cut to his left shoulder, which took the brunt of the attack and was sent flying to Evangeline's feet. She could only stare at Max, sensing the immense force within him and the threatening power he wielded. She knew she couldn't defeat him now. Spinning her spear, which transformed back into the wolf, she placed her companion on its back and fled as fast as she could. The other squads began to arrive. At first, they mistook Max for an enemy and raised their guards. Thomas quickly explained the situation and guided them to Sasha for immediate medical attention. Meanwhile, Ryan was back on his feet, coordinating the organization's next moves and receiving reports from other operations during the mission. They had captured several individuals and seized dangerous items with demonic energy that could have caused major problems if not for their efforts. Max stood alone for a moment. Despite his immense strength, he felt isolated. He noticed the fear in others and how they kept their distance. His black mask only served to make him appear more intimidating. He took a deep breath, then removed the mantle he had chosen to manifest the shadow with a downward motion of his right hand across his face. His power diminished, but his connection with Umbra was different now, complete and a part of him. Thomas approached, bruised from his battle with the clown, which had been more challenging than expected. He briefed Max on the situation and asked how he was doing. Max replied that he was fine and that even his earlier wound had healed, leaving only a small scar. When Lieutenant Julian arrived to gather more information, he was shocked to learn about the homunculus. Captain Louis will increase the resources allocated to capturing the creature. Thomas described Plump's abilities in battle and suspected that he had more secrets. Dee Dee was even more mysterious for her ability to control him. Another shocking revelation was Bastil's use of an infernal weapon. Max said he could feel and see the dark power emanating from the sword. Julian said the war between Celestials and Infernals had been fought using angels created from light and dark energy. The latter were called demons when they were defeated. These demons were categorized into various groups, with the most powerful being the Demon King, followed by princes, archdukes, magnates, and nobles. The weakest were the soldiers, who were created based on the former and could be controlled by humans. Ecstasy, said to be a false prince, was created outside the infernal plane and could only be wielded by an eternal being capable of withstanding such power. Bastil must be planning something big and dangerous, Julian concluded. Yes, but he miscalculated his strength, Ryan added, joining the group. He suffered damage to his essence flow and injuries to his right hand and arm. It seemed like he was being corrupted every minute, Max said, but his energy is as strong as the lieutenant's, if not stronger. The medical squad finished examining the Guardians. Sasha, now awake, wore an expression of clear defeat and immense frustration. She barely responded to questions and left without a word. She thought about Whiteface's final words and how he had mastered her family's fighting style. She needed to visit Carter to tell him what had happened and find a way to grow stronger. Back at headquarters, everyone looked at Max differently. Some were afraid of him, while others admired him. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. He had always been someone who never stood out. During the meeting with the captains of the guard, he recounted the story of Umbra and his strong connection to the knowledge of the previous bearers. He recalled how Achilles' words had helped him naturally manifest his shadow power, creating his mask and black katana. Madame Lily noted that his essence flow was stable, continuous, and powerful, indicating that the conflict of energies within him was almost resolved. Almost? Max asked. Yes, dear, Lily replied. Before, your essence seemed to struggle as it flowed through your body. Now it's like an unstoppable river coursing through your being. In my opinion, you still have more to offer. Commander Jacob expressed concern over Bastil's actions. They hadn't believed he would go so far to gain more power. It was clear that from this point on, he would seek to control the weapon he possessed. The shadow must be the key to wielding ecstasy to its fullest, Captain Harriet concluded. Seeing Max and his evident change, Bastil must think he can dominate both powers now. If he succeeds, he'll be unstoppable. The wristband with dark energy they exchanged had strong residues of it, Lewis added. He must have used it to acclimate his body to resist the power, but he underestimated the immense energy the Demon Prince holds. It's corrupting his body and preventing him from wielding it at will, Lily said. If one of the false princes exists in this plane, the other three must be out there too, Heracles commented. We'll launch a thorough investigation, Jacob said, but I fear they've been more proactive and efficient. That's why he hid all these years to avoid suspicion. Julian is already searching for the other false princes, Master. If he had located more than one, I think he would have used them by now, Harriet mentioned. He must also be looking for something to stabilize himself against such power. Didi and her homunculus must be the key, Lily continued. We have much to do. You should rest, Max, the commander suggested. Tomorrow we'll meet to coordinate our next move. Max left the room feeling confused. There was too much information to process. His enemy was becoming clearer, and he needed to stop him. Mastering the other attack and defense modes was now a priority. In his room, he assumed a meditative position and entered the place in his mind where the black chair and old man used to be. Now it was empty. He realized that when Umbra merged with the current bearer, the previous consciousness disappeared. Only their knowledge remained, materialized in the form of the person, but their essence was no longer part of this world. A large black mantle lay among the symbols of his predecessors. While training with Motoki, Max realized the importance of mastering Mode 1 before moving on to subsequent modes, which built upon the first by adding steps or introducing slight yet significant variations. Some modes allowed for faster movement, while others improved resistance to attacks. Combining all the steps created a solid katana fighting technique. Max felt a deep connection with his weapon, as if it were an extension of his own body. His swordmaster advised him to practice day and night, emphasizing the importance of precise hand transitions to enhance the effectiveness of his shadow balance techniques. Before going to sleep, Max planned to train with Achilles, so he reviewed his knowledge. There he was, no longer elderly but vigorous and full of energy. Max bowed respectfully. Since his goal was combat, he materialized his armored gloves and prepared for the fight. He did the same with his katana, and the battle began. Though the fight was more evenly matched, the previous bearer had better control over materializing and invoking objects, which complicated things for Max. Achilles corrected him on certain aspects and scolded him again for not using all the elements of the shadow to his advantage. Seventh bearer, Achilles said, within your combat range you can extend Umbra to create better materials for defense and attack. You're skilled with the Japanese sword, but don't limit your potential. If you don't want to use an army to fight your enemies, you can create a fortress to protect your allies. This made Max see his powers differently. Perhaps he had been misdirecting the true purpose of Umbra, which was not only to take or absorb objects, but also to share, duplicate, and strengthen them. His mentor was still imparting crucial lessons. With a final bow, Max said goodbye to Achilles, eager for the next training session.